Awesome intro. Hey, Scott, how's it going, man? This is me, Matthew, and Scott. And we're talking about one of our favorite games, RuneScape, an MMORPG for the ages.
Hey, is this do you okay? Hi, yes, I'm Scott, and today we're not, and I think it's important to note we're talking about old school RuneScape. We're not talking, or at least we can talk, but I haven't played new RuneScape. That's
What?
not my thing.
Okay, hold on. No, because when I say RuneScape, I do mean all of it,
Yeah,
including
yeah,
RS3.
not my thing.
So, what was your experience then? When did you stop playing RuneScape? And did you
Well,
play a little bit in preparation for this talk, or are you?
I
You
did.
haven't?
I did. I
That's
played
good.
a little bit of the old school, the latest version of the old school version.
Okay.
I didn't play the RuneScape 3. I refused to touch it. Not that it's probably great. Like I wouldn't know. But yeah, what are my experience with RuneScape? Well, you already know this story, but I could tell it real quick. Is that back when I was like 9 years old, I used to play a lot of World of Warcraft, and there were kids at my camp who played another game. They played RuneScape, and I went up to them and I was like, "Hey guys, I play World of Warcraft." And then somebody said, "Huh, only the nerds at my school play World of Warcraft." And then so I wanted to be like them, and I started playing RuneScape. And long story short, I mined the shit out of things. I picked up a ton of flax and made a ton of bowstrings, and eventually got full runic armor.
What got you
Um,
start? What got you started in World of Warcraft?
Probably my brother. My brother played World of Warcraft, and then I thought he was cool, so I wanted to do things that he did, and therefore I started playing World of Warcraft. Looking back now, it's so crazy to think about because like you pay $60 and then $15 a month. And I know this isn't about World of Warcraft. We could do that another time, but it's so crazy to think about. And then RuneScape was free, so
Yeah, I
RuneScape
mean
was
that's
kind of
that's
like
pretty expensive, and then it turned into what, like $7 a month.
no,
So
it's still $15 a month for. Are you talking about RuneScape or World of Warcraft?
RuneScape.
Oh, RuneScape's still free, right? And they have their free quests,
Yeah,
and then they just have paid content on top of it.
paid content on top of it. Yeah, well, I've been looking at their. So when I just jumped in again, and I've got a lot of interesting insights. I realize though, like now I look at things a little different than I used to, and I pay a lot more attention to like IAP and stuff like that now. And I have to say, like they're doing a really awesome game with like IAP and cosmetics. It's very cool what they've got there. Like you can really customize your character. Like you should totally play RS3, man. I would give it a shot because you're walking around and like everybody's got like a pet dragon or something crazy, and people look amazing. It's very cool.
Well, yeah, let's talk about it. Well, there's a lot to break down here, right?
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
I think there are a lot of people who are on my side of the fence, not in terms of hating RuneScape 3. I think everybody will admit, like, oh, RuneScape 3 is like a decent game, but there's a reason why there are more people playing old school RuneScape than they are the newest version of
And
it.
that
And
that's wild, isn't it? That's pretty incredible. It's definitely something I want to talk about. So here's the thing. We're gonna break it down in four categories: aesthetics, story, technology, and mechanics. Which one do you want to dive into first?
well, I want to bring up aesthetics
Sure,
because
aesthetics.
you just said it's wild, and I think the reason why you're saying it's wild is because clearly RuneScape 3, a lot of people would say has better aesthetics, right? It has more defined things. It's less like and maybe this isn't the right wording, but it's like less blocky. It's not so much
Well,
like
the
you
the
yeah.
way the way I've heard it described is that aesthetics are kind of neutral, right? Like Minecraft versus Witcher, those are different aesthetics, but like graphics wise, The Witcher beats Minecraft. So like the RuneScape 3 has definitely better graphics and it's beautiful. I was there very
Oh, that's
recently.
interesting.
I just saw they did a Al Kharid again, the desert town, and the water was beautiful and the lighting. It's really fantastic, and the music is amazing in both
Well,
of them.
I'm sorry, can we just specify which RuneScape you're talking about when like you
I'm talking about RS3, but the
okay, gotcha.
music from both of them is really fantastic. I remember the loading screen from old school RuneScape OSRS, where you just hear that like brr, 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 whatever with those two goblets of fire on the either side. That loading screen. Wow, what a day, man! So amazing.
Yeah, and that's actually a really interesting comparison, though. I wanted to talk about when you talk about Minecraft because it kind of looks like Minecraft. Like it's kind of like OG Minecraft in a lot of
I
ways.
don't think it looks anything like Minecraft,
The
but
old school RuneScape, and like in terms of cutting down trees, collecting timber,
yeah.
mining. and the blocking. And there's a certain appeal to that old school look that makes it look kind of like, I don't know, kind of it's kind of weird to say, but it's like retro.
Well,
It's
yeah,
fun.
and you know what's so interesting about RuneScape, which I think a lot of people don't have maybe appreciation for, is that RuneScape was always retro. And that's actually kind of the silly part of it, because RuneScape, even from the beginning, had graphics that were retro, right? Like it was never like they were at the cutting edge. Like no. They were always going for that nostalgic feel. It's not that
Mm.
now you're playing it and you feel nostalgia for 2013. It's like they had that feel in 2013. And I think that's what's really amazing, is just because RuneScape, if I were to touch on aesthetics, I was thinking about bars. And you might go to a bar, but you don't go to a bar for the best alcohol, right? Because really all bars have the same alcohol. You go to a bar because of the vibe and because of the people. And I think RuneScape is the perfect example of that. Like, it had a dope ass vibe. Like, people just wanted to be there. Like, they just wanted to fish, you know? Like, they didn't care about the fish. They just wanted to be there. And I think that's really fantastic. Like, the community that's formed around them. Speaking to YouTube channels, I watched a lot of YouTube Machinima. That was a big thing then. Moat Plox was a YouTuber, and also this guy named Zezima, who changed the whole game, right? The fact that, like, they really celebrated their players. I think that's just so awesome that, like, the community gathered around that.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely had an air of mystery to it as well. Like, or at least that's how I felt when I was younger. And I would be exploring things. And I don't know how it created it, but the fact that you felt like you were, it truly felt like a game where anything could happen. Or at least when I
Yeah,
was younger, that's
yeah.
how it felt. And it felt kind of mysterious and weird. Like, I remember I stumbled upon just a little gnome village and I was able to trade my agility, and I was just like, "What the heck is this?"
Yeah,
But I loved it. And then I stumbled across another town, and then the people were playing Capture the Flag, and I was like, I didn't even know Capture the Flag was in this game. And
yeah.
and then every time it encouraged me to explore because I wanted to see what other crazy shit was in this game and what other things I could potentially find. And then the wilderness is like the perfect example of that, or at least to me it was,
Yeah.
because it was like this scary zone, like where people just murdered each other at will.
And
Uh,
I think that was something really great. Like, I think that's one of the. So, talking between OSRS and RS3, there's two big changes. And I think one was the Wildy change, and one was the evolution of combat. The Wildy was originally this kind of PvP zone, which they kind of neutered in a sense. And that was horrible. That was really bad, because I think players love the sort of like, oh shit, like now I'm playing Dark Souls. Like, it's suddenly scary. Like, some random ass magician can come up and like freeze you in an ice cube and you're done. And like, that was awesome and kind of like crazy. And I feel like people I was thinking about this recently. I was thinking about how when games change over the years, they never get harder. They only ever get easier. I don't know if I could think of an example where a game has gotten like, they were like, you know what, too easy, let's update it, and it got harder. Can you think of something like that?
Game where it got, well, I think of champions that are OP, you know what I mean? Or champion like that are overpowered in like a game like League of Legends, and then they nerf the
Oh,
champion.
okay. Yeah. Yeah,
And
but
so
the
yeah.
game itself, though, doesn't, I think, become harder. I think it's just I mean, that's more of a balancing thing. Because that's certainly the case with RuneScape. They balance and stuff. But I don't know. I was just meditating on that recently. Um, yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, but it's also important to note with the wilderness, you also in RuneScape, if you died, you lost everything
And
that
that's
was on you.
insane. That's so crazy. But I
Like
love that.
yeah, like if you worked and you worked hard, or at least I worked hard for
Yes.
my runic armor that like, and I walked around and I felt cool because I was fully decked out. You know what I mean? And like I would, so if I died in the wilderness, that was a deal. That was like a big deal. The only time I go in the wilderness is if I was like naked and
Yeah,
like I just
exactly. Yeah.
yeah. And then what you do is you just run to the farthest depth to find, and that
Yeah,
was
just to
back in the
see
day.
what it was, right? And you see like a
Yes,
lava demon or some
yes,
crazy
and
thing.
you know what's amazing about that? And maybe this is something that YouTube has really kind of taken away from gaming, because I feel like nowadays, if I wanted to see some really obscure part of a game, I just go to YouTube and I look it up, right?
Yeah.
Whereas back in like when I played that game, when I played RuneScape, was probably like Jesus, 2006, 2005. YouTube wasn't really a thing back then. Wasn't as much a thing as it is now. And like, so you couldn't just go on YouTube and look up Wilderness level 100. You know, you had to go see it for yourself. And there's something really cool about that.
Yeah, I think the same thing has happened with the Wikipedias. It's
Hmm.
like the websites used to be like, this is just a guy, like, and he has good advice and some stuff you know better than him. But now it's like the Wikipedia is like the hive mind. It's like nothing's better than the Wikipedia. And it kind of does take a little bit of the fun away from it. Like it's like this is the most efficient way to train like per hour, you know? Click here, click here, click here, and then it takes away I think a little bit of the fun.
And it takes away the mystery of it, you know,
Yeah.
in terms of if you could just look it up on YouTube, then everybody's seen it. But like if you went to Wilderness, and don't get me wrong, back then there were also forums where you could see pictures and people could do that kind of thing. But you
Yeah.
really had to search, or at least in my opinion, you kind of had to look for it. Whereas now I just think it's way more ubiquitous, where it's just like if you want it, you got
But it was always optional, and I just played a quest on RS3 for fun, and it was a great time because I didn't look it up at all. I just kind of tried to figure it out, and it was hard, but I had a good time. It was so cool because I was talking to Andrew Gower, who I recognized the name immediately because that's the guy who made the game. And yeah, he's just like it's like total fourth wall breaking. Like he's like, "Yo, what's up, man? Like I'm just making a game here." It's like, "Oh, okay, I get it." And he's like worshiping the cabbage. That's another thing I want to touch upon
it. It's
with the.
funny.
It's so funny, dude, and it's funny because it makes fun of itself and
Yeah.
every trope it envelops, which I think is really telling between World of Warcraft and RuneScape. I just always found like RuneScape compared with any other game, like it just always never took itself seriously. Like you would
Hmm.
go like one of their gods is a cabbage. And like they think that's funny and it is funny. And one of the quests will be like, "Hey man, can you just like shine my shoe or something?" And it's like The Witcher where like but more than The Witcher. Like The Witcher has a quest where you like go like get a sheep for this guy and it's just kind of silly. But like RuneScape is like that like all the time. Like it's constantly
Yeah.
crazy. And one of the things which I think really demonstrates this point is I was looking at the most expensive item in RuneScape, and it's like a random cosmetic Santa hat or party hat. And I'm looking at World of Warcraft, and it's like one of the best weapons or something like that. And I think that's so telling. Like the most expensive item in this game is like just a piece of shit, you know? Like that's kind of the fun of it, I think.
Yeah, and the as you said, just the quests themselves were goofy. Like I remember one quest I saw when I just jumped back into the game was like a chef, and he's like, "I need food for my four children and my goat. Please help. My goat is going to die if you don't get this food."
Yeah, yeah, it definitely touches upon a bit of our like silly style that we did a lot in NSA.
Yeah. So wait, have we touched on aesthetics
Yeah, I would like
properly?
to go in a story a little bit now. So
Hmm.
what was your user story as a player? Like how did it start? How did it end? When did you get bored? How'd that look?
Okay, so I remember the beginning of the game, it just felt like you have the tutorial, which was kind of fun, and then as you got,
I
it's
remember that
weird.
guy, dude. He was such a high level, and he told me to go fight in the rat pit. You remember that?
Yep, yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah,
I burnt
yep,
my first piece of shrimp. I remember that, dude.
yep. But it's weird to talk about the story of an MMORPG because I feel like a good MMORPG, everybody has a different story.
Well,
You know
that's
what
why
I mean?
it's your player story, you know.
Yeah,
Also the sound effects, like I remember the sizzling of the shrimp, man. It felt so good. Amazing sound design in this game.
I think and how it started. Well, if you want to go back to my story, was like I remember I tried to go to the desert immediately, and the guards were like, "You cannot come to this desert. You need to be uh, cooler or something along those lines." And then in reality, I think I had to get a disguise, and then I snuck past the guards, and then I was in like the sand area, and then my quest was kind of, or at least my journey was like trying to get runic armor. Like that was my goal. That was
Huh.
my dream. And I remember it's hard because it was so many years ago to remember exactly, but I remember something I guess what's important is what I haven't forgotten is I remember that my last piece of runic armor, I think I had to go to like an island that had a dragon on it, and I got like sent to this island, and I had to fight this dragon in order to get my like last piece of runic armor. And then I just remember I felt I had such a sense of accomplishment afterwards. And like nobody in real life is gonna, give applaud you for that. But in that game, when you walked around, as I said earlier, with the all full set of runic armor, people were like, "Dude, how'd you get that? How'd you get that? How'd you do
Yeah.
that? How'd you do it?" And my other part of my story is actually kind of lame, I guess, is I would spend hours just going to this flax field and going down and just
Yeah. Yeah.
collecting flax for out. And I didn't have a bot, so I just did it myself. Nowadays, you want to get to level 99 fishing, Matthew Ventures, you just put on a bot and let it
No,
fish
I did
for you.
not bot at all to get my
Oh,
99 fishing.
all right, so then I'd go to a little bowstring thing, and I take all my flax and I just bowstring and make bowstring for hours, and
Yeah.
then I go to the bank, and they didn't have like an auction house, so you just stood there and you said WTS string with times 100, want to sell, and then people would just be like, yeah, sure, man, I'll buy it, and then
Yeah.
you just racked up your money,
I
and
like
then
that
yeah.
trade situation. That was good. And I hate I really don't like how RS3 did more security features. Like I kind of like how it's like Wild West, you know? And now it's like you can't do a trade if like it's completely not in someone's favor, if it's completely in someone's favor or something,
Oh, really?
or
That's
something
weird.
like that. Yeah, it's annoying. My experience similar to that was just fishing, man. I would watch a YouTube video or something or do my homework, and I just always have the guy fishing until I got logged out. Then I'd run to the bank and fish again, and that was my thing. And the mini games too, they were so much fun. Like you'd randomly get teleported to some crazy place, and it was just exciting. Or you'd see like someone like getting chased by like a giant plant, like as part of the mini game or whatever. So right now the okay, yeah. Let me see what else I have for stories. Um, thought it was really amazing how easy it is to pick up friends. So I went back recently to get my 99, and I was instantly able to join a clan, meet up with some buddies, and like make meaningful connections with other people. Like within only a few days, and they were like always there when I logged in, and it was so cool. Like I really felt like there was a community there. And it really does go to say like, wow, like people just go there to hang out. Like it's some people they might just say RuneScape. Oh, that's my favorite chat room, and it's a really crazy thought.
Yeah, there's also another side to that though. I remember when I was playing when I was younger, and some girl RuneScape player just followed me around and was like, "Ooh, you're so hot, you're so hot." To my RuneScape character, and I remember I went to the dinner table and I'm like, "A girl was following me around in RuneScape," and my parents were like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, she wanted to be my girlfriend." And then so it's there's also like just this weird part of it of RuneScape where it's like. I agree with you. You get all the best parts of like the community, and also all like the
Yeah,
weirdest, strangest parts of that. Like you could be fishing, and some guy could just come up to you and be like, "Hey, hey, how you doing?"
yeah, yeah, dude. So I was that guy, man. I was going around, and I was like, hey, just today, and I was like, what are you working towards? Like, what's your goals in RuneScape? And he's like, yo, man, I'm just trying to complete these quests, dude. And it was very cool. And I was trying to do this quest with this cabbage thing, and then I go to this guy and I'm like, "Hey, dude, do you know what to do with the cabbage?" And he's just like, "Eat it." And then like the quest had nothing to do with eating the cabbage. I think he just legitimately thought I was like, "Oh, what is this vegetable?" So that was a thing. Yeah. Superb quests. Love the quest. Is there any other quest that stood out to you? For me, it was the big cooking quest, like the 101st quest. You had to fight this guy named the Cullen Mancer or something, and it required like there was a big feast essentially with the main character from some of the biggest, most famous quests of RuneScape, like the big monkey guy from the Monkey Quest and this guy from this quest, and you had to basically get them. They were all together in a dinner table, and then what happened was an evil guy froze them all. So you had to feed each one its favorite food by going to the land of that person and like finding all the
Oh,
stuff for them. And that was so much fun. I had a great time with that.
that's cool. Any quests that stood out to me? I mean, as I said, that final quest with the dragon was definitely a very exciting one. And just that whole kind of the whole quest line. I forgot. It's hard to, as I said, remember the exact details, but of the desert quest line where you had to like I don't know if you were killing a prince, but there was just something like just even remembering
Right.
how I felt during it. It was just felt like such a mystery and exciting, and that I really felt a part of the world. And then to see other people completing the quest with you, and as you said with the community thing, where you can ask people for help, or you can see what they're doing, and all of those aspects. And really, the story, like I don't know. When I think of RuneScape, as you said, the world's greatest chat room. Like the story was there, and the story was solid, but that was never like it was never the biggest thing for RuneScape, or at least I felt it wasn't. To me, it was more about the exploration, the mystery of the game, and the kind of the community around it. More so than anything else. And then the dope ass combat system, which involved click, wait, click, wait, click, click, click.
Dope ass conversation. Well, there was actually a lot like behind that, and that's why I think a lot of people didn't like the change.
Mm.
I don't think EOC was that much better, to be honest. I kind of well, I like the dual wielding. I think that was cool, but beyond that, I don't know. I think that's always an interesting thing, right? Like, how do you know if your game's going to be better because of a change or not? What would you have done differently regarding that, like EOC? Like, let's say you're in charge of the company and a bunch of developers come to you and they're like, "Hey, man, we've got an amazing," and I mean, obviously, you don't have the foresight that you do now, but they're like, "We have this new version of combat that's way better." Like, what do you do in a case like that?
I think a game like RuneScape is very community driven, and that's kind of how they've been doing things now, is where they ask the community what they want to see. And there are pros and cons of that. Like I don't think asking the community and sourcing things is great for every design aspect,
Yeah.
but I think for certain things, your players are the ones that play the game the most. They know a lot of them. The reason why they love the old combat system and why I genuinely liked it as well is because even though it was very simple, you kind of learned the intricacies of it. And you knew exactly when to click, and you knew exactly where to move, and you knew all these things. So I think sourcing things from the players can be a really valuable tool as a developer. And then it's like integrating that change and then seeing if you like it, and then going from there. Because obviously, if you source it from players, players may be like, "I want a bazooka," in which I could just
Yeah,
murder
yeah,
20
yeah, of
people.
course.
Yeah, and that's obviously not something you want to take into consider. I mean, maybe you do actually. You know,
I think players are actually surprisingly pretty like I mean,
adept.
you do get crazy ideas out there, but I think people are actually pretty understanding of like, okay, this probably doesn't fit in the game. I'm pretty sure a bazooka would never be approved unless it was like
Yeah.
part of the Chinchampas or whatever. I mean, RuneScape's weird enough that probably there is room for a bazooka somewhere. But in general, yeah, like they wouldn't be
So
like
yeah.
add guns to the game or something, but they did add
Yeah.
cannons. But
So
yeah.
that would be my answer to that. Is like
So
sourcing it from the players.
is
Yeah.
there anything in the game that you're working on now, NSA intern, that you're thinking of like sourcing to the players for like feedback or commentary?
I mean, we always do that, right? Like even with early feedback, we asked about it, just to see what people were vibing with the story or vibing with the intro. Even now, we're looking at the data in terms of. Also, by the way, because I feel like if anybody is listening to this podcast, we don't just do this to pimp out NSA intern. I feel like a lot of the time with this podcast, it's almost like we're talking about games we really like, and then it just kind of makes us think of NSA intern and how we can improve it. You know?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, like these talks are really for me, and it's a way to
Yeah.
like reflect on some of my favorite games and what I liked and didn't like. And I'm gonna get to the dislikes in a second, but um, it's nothing if there's not a takeaway. I think.
Yeah. So, but as I was saying, so we have like that tunnel with NSA intern where we're able to see where people are dropping off and where people are continuing to play, and that's a version of sourcing the players, in my
Oh,
opinion.
that's
And
all right. So looking at the analytics and that kind of tells you,
yeah, and
yeah.
sometimes players will disagree with themselves. You know what I mean? They may be like, "Oh, we love like in Dark Souls, like people are not going to be like, even though if I had to take a guess at their analytics, probably 50% of people probably don't get past the first boss in that game. That's my guess. If I had to take a guess at their analytics, I could be wrong
Hmm.
about that, but I don't think I am.
It's
And
interesting.
they're not going to look at their analytics and be like, well, 50% of people died at the first boss, therefore we should make this easier. But Dark Souls is obviously like a pretty interesting case because, and it's kind of like the case that everybody brings up when you're talking about a hard game.
Yeah.
Um, So, or Cuphead, for example, now is like known as a difficult game, and they probably have very low push through. And I think a mobile game is actually different though from those games because especially a free to play mobile game because your retention rate matters, right? Like if you want to have a sustainable game in the mobile market, you need to have a decent retention rate and people who are coming back to it, playing it again and again, especially if you want to have revenue, any
Mm.
revenue,
Well,
really.
yeah, that's good. That's a really good point because it does matter more because you don't have the money yet, I guess, and you got to get it from ads or whatever. But I mean,
Yeah.
people do look at user engagement and stuff like that because if they're only playing your game for 5 minutes as a premium game, they're probably not as likely to like, I don't know, recommend it to others or whatever. I don't really know how the advertising for that works, but
Yeah, but then I think of another case where it's like they looked at user analytics like Call of Duty, right? And they said, well, nobody's playing our single player campaigns, so now they just darted them. And it's like, well, was that really the right answer? Or was the right answer like our single player campaigns have gotten progressively worse and we need to make them better? Or was it we should just axe them entirely? Like what was I don't know what the answer was there. Personally, I think the thing that would have been smarter is just improve upon what you have. But honestly, in terms of financially, it made sense for them to axe the single player campaigns.
maybe. Well, I think Destiny, it's all in one, right? So like the campaigns are the adventures that your friends join you on. And I don't think Call of Duty ever really put up the infrastructure to make that happen. Like Halo, it's like you're going with your buddies on the missions, and suddenly like you got your friend now. But yeah, I agree because Call of Duty, Soap and all those crazy guys, like they're a big part of I think like I don't know the characters that people think of when they think of video games. Who knows, man? Who knows? I mean, it's important, right? Like, one question could be asked of, like, hey, why did The Last of Us add in combat, add in multiplayer? Why does The Last of Us need multiplayer? Was that just a total waste of money? Is that stupid?
Well,
Um,
I think part of it, and maybe this is a cynical thing, but I don't think it's that cynical. It's just money, right? Like when you make a single player game and it's a linear and it's $60 and you release it, there's no revenue after the release, presumably, unless you release DLC. That's one way of doing it. The alternatively, you
or
release
IAP.
multi
Yeah.
or IP,
Well, yeah.
which I consider kind of like DLC and
You're
IAP
right.
to be
Yeah.
very similar. But multiplayer allows you to constantly monetize in terms of map packs, in terms of modes, in terms of season passes, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. And their multiplayer is really good, so it's an
And
interesting
in
case.
Uncharted, I mean, in Last of Us,
Yeah, it's known as a very good
they
multiplayer.
have multiplayer in Last of Us. I didn't even know that.
They do. They do. Check it out sometime. I've watched a lot of people playing that. All right, so let's get back to RuneScape. You know what's interesting? It doesn't actually like when I think about it. There isn't like 100 skills. There's like 15 skills or something like that. And the things that you're doing with them are pretty repetitive. Like when I think about fishing, like I could totally code a fishing game. Like you literally just click there and then wait, and maybe the bubbles move and you got to click it again. But for something is just very special where like despite it being grindy, like I think that one of the things that they nail is just the leveling pacing. Like you're never too far away from your next level, and that's pretty amazing. Like
Why do you think that? Like, you think it's just like because sometimes I felt like it took forever to get to the next level, but you don't feel that way?
I feel like there's always something to do. Like it never feels like you could just focus on grinding, but you could also do something else.
Hmm.
And I feel like they did a good job of like live ops, which is like constant events happening. It's more to talk about there for sure. Um, yeah. But there's just a breadth of content, man. It's a very exciting game. Strong aura of the unknown. Yeah, Alkaha Desert, strange weapons before wikis. Let's see what else I have here. Don't fix this temporary. Okay, so here's my biggest gripe with RuneScape. I would say, yeah, I'm definitely not a fan of like how it's more safe and stuff now. Because I did like that, and actually, I bought Drygore rapiers which are like the most expensive item in the game. Not really, but weapon wise, they're one of the best. And like I instantly just died with them because I was an idiot and I went to the wildy just to be an idiot. And I was so devastated, dude. I had to put the computer away. Like it was pretty insane. But I'm just happy I had that experience because it was very real, and I paid for that emotion, be it happiness or sadness. Um, but beyond just how maybe the world's getting a little more coddled, I think what RuneScape did very wrong was segmentation. So the fact that they now have two different games, OSRS and RS3, and 50% of their player base is split between both of them. It's actually an even split. I was looking at the numbers.
Oh, it's even now. It used to be that old school was more popular.
Okay, maybe I need to look back in the timeline. But today it looked like it was about even. So it's just like the worlds, they feel so empty. And I think that's also an issue with just the world system in general. Like there's so many different worlds now. That really should like be removed and just like brought back to like just one world or something, because now each world has like 300 people in it. You never see anyone, and it's kind of
Mm.
sad, because I think a lot of the charm of RuneScape was like there's always someone around the other corner, and like that made it really feel lived in. And I feel like without the people it just feels a little empty, so especially because I can remember the halls not being so, and honestly, the feeling of emptiness is one of the saddest feelings for a space to inhabit. I remember when I was working at Zynga, which is this big company location. All so many of the offices were empty because like many people didn't work there anymore, and it kind of carried this weight of like just emptiness. It's very disheartening. I really don't like that in a space. I'd rather it be a small space with the same amount of people than like big and feeling empty, you know? And that's different than feeling ornate, right? Because sometimes it's luxury to have a lot of space. But in this case, the world just felt empty. I don't know if you felt that way as well. So what was it like when you just joined OSRS just recently? What was that like?
Oh, I mean, I only played the tutorial island. I didn't go
Did
any
you see
further.
anybody else?
Yeah, there were some people. It definitely, I think because I was in the tutorial section, once I started moving out a little bit from there, I see what you're saying in terms of not as many people. But you have to, it's hard to criticize the game for that because, like, I agree with you in terms of, like, oh, it does make the game worse. But I don't know because I'm just trying to think, like, nowadays it's really hard to, I guess what your point would be is like, well, if you just made the game smaller or condensed your worlds or something along those lines, just to have more people in every single world. um but can't you always just join like a high population server?
The problem is that even the high population servers now are not high pop. So
Oh,
the
okay.
biggest server that I could see was like 400 for free to play.
Oh, wow.
Where and I think it used to be in the thousands for sure. So
I mean, at the high points there were 250,000 people playing RuneScape at once, you know what I mean, back
that's
in the day.
insane. That's really insane. Those are crazy numbers.
Oh yeah, no, it was insane. I mean, that was before also World of Warcraft really took off. You know what I mean? RuneScape was very big.
I have to play World of Warcraft a little bit. Do you recommend it?
I mean, it's interesting to recommend RuneScape or World of Warcraft because I feel like I haven't played either in a long time.
Hmm.
So
And it's changed a lot.
yeah, so like a lot of my favorite things about RuneScape, I would probably, if I went back to the game now, a lot of the things that I talked about with you in terms of mystery and all of that, I probably wouldn't think, I don't know if I'd find it as cool because when I was younger, I think a lot of those things scared me, you know what I mean? And I was frightened by the big monsters and that kind of thing. And nowadays, I feel like I just wouldn't really care. Like I'd be like, no, all right, I lost. And
Huh.
it was a bigger deal too, when I lost my items, it was a big deal. I feel like nowadays I'd be like, oh, whatever. You know what would have been nice though? I remember if I had a criticism back then, and I remember what it was I always wanted to build my own little like home. I don't know if you could do this, but I definitely didn't see a way to do it. I wanted to be able to build my little house in RuneScape and have like a little home that I built that I could like lock and live in, you know what I mean? And start like a little community and build houses in that community. You couldn't do that, right? In old school RuneScape?
They have a construction skill. I don't know if it existed in OSRS.
Okay, I don't remember doing it, but I would have loved that because I used to. What I
It
would
was
do
pretty
is
segmented though, so it's like you leave and you go to your house and you're like in your own little instance.
no, that's not what I want at
Yeah,
all. Is
yeah,
what I loved doing was I would go to abandoned homes in cities and I just go inside and I'd like put my stuff down and I'd
yeah.
pretend like it
Dude,
was
that's
my
awesome. Yeah,
house.
it'd be cool if you could just be like the shopkeeper or something, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
I
exactly.
I feel like that's such an amazing part of like Grand Theft Auto. I don't think they have it now, but it used to be like you if you well they still have this part where if you get in a police car, you could see who the most wanted is and you could just be a little cop and like go chase down the most wanted. But they used to have it that like you could get into the firefighter truck and go put out a firefight, go put out a fire. And like that was really cool, like just to be that little dude and like kind of play as a sim.
And it would
Yeah.
really contribute to the community aspect of RuneScape. You know what I mean? If you could be the shopkeeper and like everybody knew that like there's like a jerk shopkeeper and like you don't want to go to his shop because he's got terrible prices.
Yeah.
So then it would have its own little community. I would have loved if I, as I said, like if you could create your own community, started, and then you could like go to war with other community. Like that would be dope. Obviously, it would be a different game in some
That's an
ways,
awesome
but like
idea for a game though. I like it.
yeah, yeah, but I would have loved that in I'm sure there's games that do something like it reminds me of Tribal Wars back when I played that. That's a kick. But something like that, if that feature was in RuneScape, that's something that I would have really loved, and I think it would have added to the community building elements and allowed me to feel like because a lot of time in RuneScape, I felt like I didn't have a place, if that makes sense,
Yeah, I think
right? Like I
clans help
didn't
with that. Clans a little bit.
clans, yeah, definitely, but clans to a certain extent, like even like I would have loved to be able to like if you have a clan, as I said, you're able to like build a physical space in the world that is yours, and that could be taken away. That's so fun.
Yeah, they do have the clan castle now, and I remember I would go to meetings there, and everybody would get
Yeah.
in like a big like audience, and like people would like be chatting, and they'd be like, "Everybody, stop chatting! We're having a meeting now." That was a lot of
That's
fun. They'd be
fun.
like keeping in personal messages. Yeah,
That's fun. Yeah, and the only issue I could see with that, honestly, is what would happen is the people that play the game a lot just become so overpowered that they would just come in and like murder people's towns. Like, and
yeah.
I could totally see that
Well,
happening. And then
that is
people,
yeah, that is a very interesting problem. Like, how do you create content that's going to service like experienced players well with not experienced players? What was your experience with that kind of gamut in RuneScape?
with experience and not
Kind of like
experience,
how you related to the big powerful people.
I felt like towards the end of the game, I was one of the big powerful people. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I was, so in terms of that, I mean, once I got to a certain point in the game, if there was another criticism I would have, it's that like the end game to me wasn't that great. You know what I mean? Like I felt like once I had achieved my goal of getting the runic armor, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot that was going to beat me up. I was like, I'm a badass. I could kill whatever I want to kill, and like I don't want to touch. I don't want to ruin my runic armor, so I'm not going to go that far.
Right,
You
yeah,
know?
that's when you want to get like a membership, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So like I feel like if anything, or at least in my experience, I didn't enjoy the end game as much. I enjoyed getting there, but I didn't enjoy being there because at a certain point I just felt like I was just walking around and just chilling, which was fun, but there wasn't or I was doing capture the flag at some point. I did that a lot in the game, but beyond that, I mean, did they have rating in RuneScape? I don't even know.
They had clan battles and stuff like that, yeah.
But like raids, like where you go to a dungeon and you fight monsters, and then you fight like a giant monster
Yeah, that's
boss.
a skill, a dungeoneering, which is very new. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's
I
new.
think that's
Okay.
one of the most recent skills.
Well, I didn't have that, or at least I don't. I've never experienced it. It's hard for me to say definitive statements about RuneScape because I felt when I was younger, I felt like the game was so huge. Just
Yeah,
felt
it
huge.
still is, and I mean, I know a lot of more than I guess most people, but there's still a lot that like I don't know of, and that's kind of part of the charm, I think. Because I remember when I first got my membership, like it was just a passport, and I was just going around places and like, wow, what is this, and what does this do, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun just to adventure, man. I think I gotta play No Man's Sky and just go adventuring, dude. Because you know they've been doing updates. It's apparently really good now, so I think
Really, really,
I heard, yeah.
wow, wow. You know,
There's a bunch of games on my list. Maybe I should talk a little bit more about RuneScape, but just briefly, these are the games I'm looking at right now. I don't know. I don't think I've shared this with you. Antichamber, Batman Arkham City, Deus Ex, Dishonored, Grim Fandango, Orwell, Prey, which is that game. Steven Sausage Roll, The Swapper, and XCOM, and maybe Psychonauts. Those are the games which are on my list of like games to play that I already bought in Steam that are just sitting there.
wow.
Maybe also Stardew Valley. Love to check that out, see what that's about.
Yeah, yeah. So what else was on your list of four things?
Sure.
Aesthetics,
So
story.
the last thing is technology. What did you think
Wait,
about
wait,
the
there were
tech
four things though. Aesthetics, story,
mechanics? I already hit most of the mechanics things. Um,
and what was the fourth one again?
you know what I thought was really interesting? Actually, I just noticed
Technical.
this. Technical technology,
Oh.
yeah. On the mechanics side, I saw this when I logged in recently. As a free to player, you can now do member skills, but there's just a level cap. So
Hmm.
you can't train your skill past like I think 20 or something as a free to play player, which I think is very cool. And it's probably a way better idea than just having the skill completely members only. But I thought that was very interesting, and I like that change. I was thieving, that's what I was doing. So I was like, wow, I could thieve in a free to play world? That's pretty cool.
What's the difference between mechanical and technical?
I think mechanical is more game design and technical is more engineering,
What do you mean by engineering? Like
like
the actual.
software kind of thing.
Oh, okay,
But
gotcha.
it could be something else. Or something that I look at technical is just all the IAP and all the analytics work that goes into that. So now like Rune Metrics is something you could buy, and this is literally just a service that gives you your stats, like how
Hmm.
many hours you play and what your experience looks like. And I think that's a really good sell to
Huh.
people who are all about like the stats.
And you pay for that?
You pay for it. Isn't that crazy?
Well, why isn't there like an external site that just is like, here's all your data?
Um, I think because RuneScape owns it. But yeah, that was pretty cool. And I've played a crazy amount of RuneScape. I remember I did look up this stat. I have it right on my resume.
Ooh, 'cause a typing in slash played in World of Warcraft was always like a scary moment. Like
Slash
everybody,
played. Is that how you saw
yeah,
your thing?
yeah. Well, because it was like always like a meme that like when you do slash played, you realize how much time you have spent
Wow.
in this game. Yeah.
So my time is 2,400 hours plus.
How much is that's like
That's over
over
100 days. That's over
holy
100 days in Gilnor.
holy
It's pretty
crap.
wild, dude. Yeah. So that's my most played game by far. Closely followed. No, not closely, but followed by Halo 3. But yeah, for good
Wow.
reason, obviously, because there is. I mean, hell, I could tell you it's true. There is literally thousands of hours of content. I have played the game for thousands of hours.
Oh, I don't know why I've been talking so much. Holy shit, we got the top tier RuneScape player here.
I have a skill that's 99, fishing, and it took me forever to get that, and I'm so proud of it.
And so, why do you think you were so proud of that? Like, not saying you shouldn't be, but like all you did, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't mean to just demean the accomplishment, but you like clicked and you just fished
That's
for.
that's what's so funny about it because it does seem so like insurmountable as a young person, but like the older you get, it's like I can make time for this. I could do a little clicking while I'm like doing something else, and I think it really the reason why I came back is like as a young person, I always wanted to do this, and now it's like let me go back and like achieve my childhood dreams.
And one of your childhood dreams was reaching level 99 and fishing in RuneScape.
Yeah,
And the reason why it felt like an accomplishment was why? Because it just took
I
so
think it's because it took so long, and I always aspired to have it, and I just like really I guess respect people who had it. You know.
well why though? Well, that's what I'm trying to get at is like
Why? I think because the game did a really good job of making like 99 feel sexy and feel like something that should be like appreciated and honored and it's special.
how did it do that?
Um, I think it does it a lot in the same way that Clash Royale makes it special to be in a certain arena. Like it's like, oh man, you're in this arena. Like it's just progression in general. What RuneScape did was they had special emotes and the skill capes. And if you're 99, you get to be part of like a guild or something, or you get to do certain things at higher levels. Like they have a leveling system which almost always rewards you. Like if you go from level 1 to 2 to 3 to whatever, And they gotten better at this. They're slowly filling in the gaps. But it's like almost at every level, there is a new thing. Like now you can mine this brick. Now you can craft this type of shoe. And that's what's really cool about it. They literally have content for like 100 levels over like 32 skills. And they do a really excellent job with that pacing. You know what I heard recently? I heard, when you're halfway to 99, when you're at 92. Isn't that crazy?
Wow. Huh.
That's pretty wild. But yeah, I just fishing is something I could do. Like I literally just got back into it, got into a clan, started chatting with people, and just started fishing while I was doing my assignments and stuff. And slowly I got there.
So is that a criticism? Because like I talked about how I would collect flax and then I would do the making the bowstrings and I'd
Well, you
sell
must
that.
have enjoyed it if you did it.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Like I'm like, how why did my young because I feel like now I would not do that. I would
Well,
not devote hours and hours and hours. And it's literally, I didn't listen to a podcast. I didn't read a book. Like,
hmm,
it was literally just me. I swear to God, just going to the field, collecting flax for hours on end, and
I
then turning it
yeah,
into
I
food.
did have stuff going on in the background. Like I would watch a movie or something, or do my homework, hopefully. Um, but speaking to your point of why do people do that, or is that fun? I think it is fun. I think you did get enjoyment out of it.
Well, because I got enjoyment when I would get like a ton of gold. And it felt like, you know why? Because it felt tangible to me. It felt like, oh, because there's so many things in like the real world where I feel like it's like very intangible, right?
Yeah,
Like accomplishments and all that. But in RuneScape, I was like, if I want to be a millionaire, I can be a millionaire. You know what
dude,
I
I
mean?
think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, I mean that's why people I think play games in general, just because like going from level 1 to level 2 is like so discernible.
Yeah, and it was as I said, it felt achievable to be the American dream was alive and well
Dude, it
in
was
RuneScape.
in
Yeah.
a English game.
And as long as you worked your butt off and you worked hard, and keep in mind, working hard just involved you clicking for hours and hours and hours on end, and then also selling. As long as you did that, you became wealthy in
Well,
that
you know
game.
what I heard? I heard that there's actually some countries where you make more money doing that than whatever the minimum wage paying job is. So people would literally just play RuneScape as their form of income.
That's really interesting,
That is
huh?
insane, isn't it? It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. Uh, it's a testament to the state of the platform and just how far it's come. Um, yeah, for sure. All right, let me see if there's any other things I want to touch here. Technology, anti-botting. What was your experience with bots in the game?
Well, I wish I knew about them.
I
I
mean,
mean, I wish,
I
yeah.
probably did see like a ton of people. I didn't really realize how many of
Yeah,
them were bots until
yeah.
after.
I thought I was just as I thought I
Like, I
was
think
like every
maybe they should put the bots back in so the worlds don't feel so empty.
well because I think I thought that the picking up the flax was just a normal thing because I saw so many other people doing it. In
They were all
reality,
robots. Oh
yeah, in
man.
reality, I was probably just with a bunch of freaking bots, and I was like, wow, everybody else is just doing this as well.
Oh boy, oh boy. All right, awesome. Well, that's everything I wanted to touch on. I guess so yeah, for my big thing it was segmentation. I really just wish they kept the community closer together and finding more ways to do that. Like if you start a quest and you're having a little bit of trouble, like it'd be great to just like reach out to a quest buddy and instantly you've got a little chat with someone else who's doing the quest at the same time. I remember there was one quest in the game where you have to have somebody of the other side in Varrock and you got to like kind of two people on both sides of the fence. And I had to go to the forums in order to find someone to do that, but it really should have been set up in such a way that in the game I can start chatting with someone else who's doing the same quest as me. That'd be super sick. And that's something I'd love to see in No
Oh,
Stranger where like you could chat with someone else during the game.
and they could help you. They could give you hints.
They can help you and stuff. Yeah, that'd be sick. But
Well, yeah,
yeah.
that's a really good idea. This, do you think RuneScape was really that good? And do you think that the
Yes.
popularity of old school RuneScape kind of is a testament to the fact of it being good?
Yes. I think a lot of people will look at RuneScape and they'll be like, "Oh, people just play that game for nostalgia." But the truth
Yeah.
is, as I said, people played it for nostalgia from '07. Like that game has always hit that niche, like feeling of just something magical, something fantastic, something silly, and a beautiful combination. And playing it today, I definitely had a few moments where I was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing." And literally I could just tap into that, and that was fantastic. And I think that's what I love about the world the most, is that the fact that it's an online game and it's living when you're not there, it always feels like a place that I'm welcome and can go to. Like almost like when I was researching for this game, for this LARP I'm gonna do for Harry Potter, like I kind of started getting into a little bit of Harry Potter fan stuff, and it just suddenly felt like I was part of the fiction again, and like I was like, wow, like the Harry Potter family is still there for me, and I kind of relived that, and I felt that way with RuneScape. Like it's not even like a nostalgic thing. It's like you can go there to start a new adventure, and it's all there. It's not just remembering old. It's like you could just pop right in and start the next adventure, and that's what's really magical about it.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to say my only gripes back then would have been more fun to grind. Like, I wish I got more out of it. Like, I feel like I feel like I was a slave child laborer. Like looking back at my experience.
Do you grind now in any games?
No, no, I wouldn't anymore. I just don't. I feel like almost like maybe I'm too bougie now.
No,
But
I
like,
mean actually, games in general though have been moving in this direction where they're less and less grindy. Actually,
well, because it's just like I feel like games have gotten better. You know what I mean? And I feel like if, as I said, if I had the criticism of RuneScape, but then again, I think, and maybe this is a BS defense of the grindiness, but like part of me felt, I swear to God, I know for a fact that I probably felt more accomplished because of how miserable the grinding was. Like it felt like because I was willing to do it. I knew that nobody else was willing to do it. So when I got my reward, I felt like I felt like a true American, true hardworking American. Like I had worked for this money. Like I went to
yeah.
those fields and collected flax. Like so I there's something to be said for the fact that like I think it, but then again, I would say it should have been more fun. It should be more fun. Like it definitely
Is it
there's no
fun enough
excuse.
now?
I haven't played. I don't know what it's
Huh?
like.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I would have said is I felt like there should have been more room to create your own world in the world that was RuneScape, in my opinion. I felt like I didn't have, as
So
I said,
yeah,
I
you could
never had.
customize your character and get a minion, get like cool art and stuff. But
No, I
basically, it's
wanted a
just your person.
space.
You want a
Yeah.
physical space.
I want a physical space in the territory because I always felt like, oh, I wanted to make my own mark on this
So
world
is
that
the
was the game.
player own house? Is that kind of enough?
Well, own house, but other people can like
Right. Yeah, I think I see what you're saying. Like you want it to be like Minecraft, where you literally can change the landscape a little
yeah,
bit.
can be like more like Minecraftly.
More like
but
Minecraft.
but no, legitimately in terms of because I would have loved to form my own community and have aspects along those lines of building a community together in that game because there was a great community there and you could really expand upon it. Imagine if you could have like a little family in RuneScape and like you provided for your family and shit. I don't know how they would do. Anyway, there's a lot there. I would say in terms of, and it would be a different part of that game. But if there was anything, I always felt like I wanted a physical space to call my own in the game, and I wish it was a little less grindy. But everything else, I'll never forget the exploration and the community and the scare, like the mystery and the aura and the tone of that game that came from the music, a combination of the music and the aesthetics and the jokey kind of theme that was because it was we didn't mention this. Yeah, it is jokey, but there were some moments in RuneScape that like scared you to the bone, like where you
Yeah.
go into the wilderness and you see like a fucking demon, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
this just got real. Like,
It was. It was.
but yeah, it was. Oh, and if I had one other thing, it would be like, and I don't know how they could fix this, but like, let's say I wanted to go back into RuneScape and play my character. I have no idea how I would do that. I have no clue. I don't
Well,
know
I
what I would do.
remember my character, but you don't even know the email
I
associated
don't
with it.
even know. I don't even know the email. I don't know
I think
how.
that's your fault, dude. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, it probably is my fault to be honest.
I
But
don't
I
know
would have.
what they could do from that point.
But
I
I
guess
would
the what
love
you
if there
kind of want
was.
is if you could start at a certain level, right?
I think no. I think if anything, it should be like if you input your name. like if I was able to put Scott Mulligan in like 10 years ago, and then I could look up Scott Mulligan now, and then I could kind of like find it via that,
But
like
you
something
could
that.
search by email. Like how many emails did you have in the past
Oh
10
man,
years?
I mean, when I was younger, dude, I went through emails like they were butter, Like,
Really? That's crazy. So couldn't you go to any of those emails? They were totally
uh,
random.
shoot, I'll make a thing of it. I'll try to figure out like what account I had my RuneScape thing
I'm
on.
sure you could if you wanted to. Like I certainly went
Maybe.
back and yeah,
I
it was
would
good, man.
love to see my old character.
Well, maybe I remember my character. I was definitely into the role play aspect. I was the fisherman. That was what I did. I fished and I cooked fish, and it was a great time, man. I had such a fun time. Yeah, it's weird because I don't think I'm ever gonna experience something like that again. I think like even a game like Destiny, it's so far removed from what this game was. I need to play Diablo. I know that's a little grindy. Um, and not
And the culture is different. I'm sorry,
yeah,
but I just have to say that the culture is, oh, and maybe it's not even the culture, but I think it's we got older and more. The culture is different in terms of like everything is there now online. Anything you want to see, all the coolest aspects of it are on YouTube. You know what I mean? On the
yeah,
trending page.
yeah.
So yeah, I just want to point that out.
I think it'd be amazing if like technology gets to the point in a few years that we can literally like recreate RuneScape and go back to when there's people there and just like create a whole bunch of robot people like to talk to you and like to hang out with you.
Well, that's kind of scary.
That'd be pretty awesome. Because I feel like that's one of the best parts that's like now not there. Do you think
That really,
NSA would be better if it had like a public chat room? Do you think that game needs that? Probably doesn't need it.
a public chat room. I don't know. I mean,
It
like.
makes sense in No Stranger, but in NSA it would feel probably a little tacked on.
No, no stranger, it would make sense, but I would say if there definitely could be. I think a game developer should always strive for some community element. I know we always talk about Dark Souls and we talk about Demon Souls and all that, but even Demon Souls has a community element. You have those little markers on the ground that is
Yeah,
like
but that's
the root
huge. That's
going, yeah.
huge. Like that's literally the ability to send messages to each other. Like that is a
Yeah,
lot.
so my point is like I almost think that like almost every game should push to have some sort of community element because like we need to embrace what games are, and I think that's like something that we talk about a lot is like when you make a game, it's like embrace the fact that you're making a game, and there are certain things you can do with a game that you can't do with other mediums. Like you can have community elements integrated in the game. No movie ain't gonna have that in the
Do
movie.
you
Like,
think the beginner's guide would have been better if when you're in that chat room cave, you could actually leave a chat and you could see other chats by actual players?
well, interactive media, not game. You know.
Sure, sure.
Well, I think the beginner's guide. I think part of that, and that would have taken away from the fact that it was all the notes were left by him. Like
Yeah, that's
it's
kind of
kind of
lonely.
sad. Yeah, and the
I'm just thinking of games like because I disagree. I don't think every game needs that. Like
well,
I think The
interactive
Last of Us
media
does a good
doesn't
job
need.
of segmenting it. Like The Last of Us doesn't have any people in the real game, but then later it does. The one thing Last of Us, you could change your clothes and stuff in the game. That's pretty interesting. So like you could say I want to play this level with a red shirt or something.
Yeah, but even The Last of Us, I think like there's probably some way the community oriented thing could be integrated in a way. But my point is, Matt, is that you and I only know of the ways that we know how to integrate community, right? But then Dark Souls comes around and it's like, F you, here's a way to do it that's even more fun,
That's
you
a
know?
really great point. Yeah, maybe there's another kind of something that well, I mean, we also have seen cool stuff with
Like,
kind of the
okay, sorry to
division.
interrupt, but I'll give you an example. Like, what if in Last of Us you could play as the zombies in somebody else's single player campaign? And like,
That would be awesome.
yeah,
That
so
would be awesome.
so that's like one not the zombies. Neil Druckmann is triggered.
Oh, you're not allowed to call them zombies?
Because he's like, oh, I'm gonna make a zombie game. The clickers. My
He
bad.
doesn't call them zombies? Seriously?
I'm pretty sure he's like, nah, they're not zombies, dude. They're
What does
not.
he
No,
say there?
I don't
The
know. I think
infected or
he's like,
whatever?
there's some sort of biological creature.
That's so
Um,
funny. I just heard this
maybe he does call them zombies, but I heard one talk where he was
what?
like, they ain't zombies, Hoban.
There's this like famous director who like will not like call his things zombies. He'll be like the infected. I heard like another actor impersonate him. I'm getting crazy deja vu. I don't know what it was.
But anyway,
But
my
that's
point is,
interesting.
imagine if you. So my point, like with the clicker thing, that's just one example, right?
Yeah, I
But
mean, and they did that in Left 4 Dead, and it worked out great.
yeah, I haven't seen it done in a single player campaign where it's like, well,
Yeah,
probably some game if
Left
I
4
try to
Dead's
think of
more
it.
conducive for that, but I think you're right. I think that'd be sick in but also maybe not. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it
I,
depends.
I would love to try to kill somebody's Joel and Ellie and play as the
I would
clicker and
enjoy that too.
like I try to go for
That'd be sick, dude. Yeah.
yeah, and not to mention, by the way, if you wanted to criticize bad AI, that's a fun fix to the problem of having bad AI is just have players be your AI.
Well, easier said than done. I think that's a very silly thing to say because basically, there's always going to be a point where there's not a
Well,
player available. You're going
here's
to need to
another
have
thing.
stand-in AI.
Well, you could have. I know. I joke. You have to have the AI there anyway. But my point is like, okay, that's like a fun way to
It's a
have
cool
co-op.
idea, yeah.
Also, what if you could do co-op mode? Last of Us, we have one person play Joel and one person play Ellie.
Dude, that's what it is, dude. You're totally right. And also, there's a mission where you play with that redneck guy who helps you out. You get
Yeah.
three
So
people there.
my point is, and that could be online. That doesn't just have to be you. You could play with somebody else who's playing your Ellie, and like
Yeah,
that's
I
fun.
think that'd be a lot of fun. I
So, man,
wonder. Yeah,
sorry to interrupt, but my point is that's just me spitballing within the last
yeah.
2 minutes.
Hopefully, tech will be at the point where like to do that won't cost $1 million. And you could just be like, hey, let's make a little mode where you can do this, and it's like, boom, the computer will do it for you. Because right now, I think to say something like, oh, we'll just add a co-op feature, like that's a huge undertaking. And so it's always interesting, like what you want to risk the money on.
I don't know. I just think when you're making a game, embrace the game.
So, do you think I need to embrace NSA and add a chat room, or do you think it doesn't belong?
Well, you have to think about NSA more and think about like, well, what in NSA would be an inter. I think one of the things that well, I don't want to spoil one of your ideas for it, but you have a pretty cool idea for NSA that was you had a while back, but
What's
you
my
know,
cool idea?
well, I won't spoil it. I'll say it once my UX is over, just in case you actually want to do it.
Oh, are we not allowed to talk about ideas we want to implement? We don't want.
I
I
think
feel like if you're
yeah.
listening to the thing, you can
If you're
know.
this and you're this far in,
If you're
like
one of 10 people who's listening.
yeah, I guess so. But also those one of 10 people, I feel like you guys will
But
know.
you're right. You're right. We are getting off the topic
Yeah.
off RuneScape. All right, so let's start a little secret
That's
discussion.
that's kind of like my UX, right? Isn't that my UX? It's like, hey, let's talk about this game. Actually, let's talk about 10 other games.
Well, I mean that's the biggest point there is that games are not in a vacuum, right? And I could totally we could run this show as like, hey, it's just about one game, only talk about that game. But I think that's dumb. Like I think the value of talking about a game is where it fits in the ecosystem and how it can impact your work. And I'm not a player, I'm a maker. I'm a player too, but I'm mostly a maker. So I
I'm a
think about
playmaker.
how it's gonna affect the stuff. There you are. You're a playmaker. Well, yeah, dude, RuneScape is pretty fun. Any other things you want to say about RuneScape?
I feel like I shouldn't have spoken. You're the one who has when you were like, yeah, I have 24,000 out. No, I'm sorry,
Because
2,400
we're
hours.
going through my favorite games right now. When we get to your favorite games, you're gonna tell me all about how Deus Ex changed your life, dude.
Yeah, well, how did RuneScape change your life, Matt?
RuneScape changed my life because it taught me to be social and to work for things and to set goals and to be hardworking.
Wow,
A lot, dude. And it also taught me
to not take life seriously.
vocabulary. It's a lot of random words like fletching. But yeah, just to kind of be a silly guy, and it also made me fall in love with video games, which has somehow blossomed into a career.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and so that's what you learned from it.
And from
That's
you,
terrific.
any life changing moments from RuneScape
I
or
mean,
or WoW?
I learned that life is a cruel, cruel place, and that if you want to make it, you gotta get that good flax
You gotta
and
go.
make those good string,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everybody else was really a bot. So everybody else is cheating. Just know that, kids. That
Everybody else is
your
fine.
hard work doesn't matter. Everybody else is a bot. But if you work hard, you could eventually
Yeah.
get to
No,
your
yeah. You know what's crazy? Like in 15 years, like that's just gonna be life. Like you're gonna be like in a law firm, and then it's like, well, that guy, he's a bot. He's a better lawyer just because he's a robot. Like, you'll be competing against like fellow coworkers who are just AI.
Oh man.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
maybe. And then besides that, I think it taught me to love the mystery. It taught me to love the mystery, and to appreciate the unknown. Because the fact that I could stumble across a village and there was a whole new game mode called, like, capture the flag, was just so much fun to have found. You know what I mean? And there was so much richness in being like, and I feel like nowadays, and maybe I'm being like a real old schmuck over here, but like, like I feel like nowadays when you buy a game, you're like, I want to know all the features in the game. I want to know all the things I can do in the game. I want to watch it on YouTube before because I want to see if it's something I like, and then and obviously it makes sense
Yeah.
because you're dropping
Yeah.
money on it.
And a
But
lot
part
more
of
money these days.
a lot more money. And then, but the point is like, well, that takes away a lot of that kind of like going to the game and then being surprised by what you see in it. And if anything, I think that has encouraged you and I to put what we call rabbit holes into our games, which
Yeah.
is like something where somebody just stumbles across it and they just go down this little rabbit hole, and it's like, oh my god, wow, this is and it create. And I think one of the most important things with MMORPGs, what I learned from RuneScape and from World of Warcraft, is even though there are millions of players, the goal of the developer should always be to help the player carve their own story through all these other stories.
Wow. Yeah, that's an amazing way to think of it. That's a really good point. Yeah, I guess that's what I was talking about with user stories, because it does it like the game has quests, but in the end, it's all just about your UX.